Think about this. How many times have you been lied to without even realizing it? A friend who said they had your back but didn't. A colleague who swore they handled it but never did. A partner who looked you in the eye and said, "Trust me," but their actions told a different story. Lies are everywhere. Some are small, harmless even. Others, they can destroy relationships, careers, and lives. And the worst part? Most people don't even know when they're being deceived. Because liars don't always look guilty. They don't always avoid eye contact or fidget nervously like in the movies. Some are skilled manipulators, calm, confident, and dangerously convincing. They don't just tell lies. They shape narratives, twist emotions, and make you question your own instincts. But here's the good news. Lies leave clues. No matter how good someone is at deception, there are always tells, small cracks in their story, subtle shifts in body language, inconsistencies in their words. Once you know what to look for, you won't just hear lies. You'll see right through them. So today, we're breaking down 8 undeniable signs that someone is lying to you, backed by Stoic wisdom, psychology, and real-world experience. Because when you can separate truth from illusion, no one can manipulate you again. Stay with me until the end, because once you understand these signs, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. Let's begin. 1. They try to manipulate your emotions. They don't just lie, they control the narrative. They twist the truth, bend reality, and make you feel like the bad guy for even questioning them. This isn't just deception, it's emotional warfare. And here's the trap. They don't need you to believe their lie. They just need you to doubt yourself. The moment you do, you stop asking questions, you stop trusting your instincts, and they win. A skilled liar doesn't panic when confronted. They don't stutter or shift uncomfortably like a bad actor in a crime drama. Instead, they go straight for your emotions. They plant seeds of doubt. They make you feel guilty for questioning them. They manipulate your trust, your empathy, and your sense of fairness. And before you even realize it, you're no longer discussing the facts. You're defending yourself for even bringing it up. That's how deception works. It doesn't attack you head on. It makes you question what you already know to be true. Think about the last time someone made you feel guilty for asking a simple question. Maybe a friend who forgot to pay you back, but when you asked about it, they sighed and said, "Wow, I didn't think you saw me that way." Or a partner who promised you something but never followed through. And when you confronted them, they snapped. "I can't believe you don't trust me." Notice what happened. You weren't discussing the facts anymore. You were defending yourself against the idea that you were wrong for doubting them. That shift is intentional. Liars don't always deny. Some take a different approach. They turn it around on you. They make you feel like your doubt is the real problem, not their deception. And they do it in ways that seem so natural, so fluid, that you might not even notice it's happening. They play the victim. "I've been under so much pressure lately, and now this?" They use urgency. "I don't have time for this right now. Just trust me." They gaslight you into believing that you're overreacting. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" The goal is simple. Get you to back off before the truth catches up to them. And here's why it works. When someone pulls at your emotions, guilt, sympathy, urgency, they bypass your logic. Your brain stops analyzing facts and starts reacting. You feel uncomfortable. You want to ease the tension. You want to believe them, not because their story makes sense, but because their reaction makes you feel like questioning them is wrong. That's where people get trapped, because once you doubt yourself, you lose the battle, and they know it. Let's look at Ryan, a successful entrepreneur. Smart, disciplined, built his business from nothing. He knew how to read people, at least he thought he did. Then came James, a smooth talker, always confident, always convincing. James had a business opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime deal. Ryan was interested, but something felt off. Small details didn't add up, so Ryan started asking questions. And that's when the manipulation began. James didn't argue, he didn't get defensive. Instead, he acted hurt. "Ryan, I thought we trusted each other. If you don't believe in me, maybe we shouldn't even do this." That single sentence changed everything. Now Ryan wasn't questioning James anymore. He was questioning himself. Had he been too harsh? Was he overanalyzing? He didn't want to ruin the deal over paranoia. That moment of hesitation was all James needed. The contract was signed. 2 months later, the money was gone. James had vanished. And Ryan, he had ignored his instincts because he let someone else control the narrative. This happens every day, in business, in friendships, in marriages. People aren't just manipulated by words, they're manipulated by how those words make them feel. That's why it's critical to understand how to resist emotional manipulation. And this is where Stoic philosophy becomes your greatest weapon. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. A liar's greatest weapon isn't their words. It's your reaction to them. They want you to get angry so they can call you irrational. They want you to feel guilty so they can shift the blame. They want you to react, because the moment you do, you stop thinking clearly. But the solution isn't to fight back. The solution is to stop playing their game. When someone tries to manipulate your emotions, pause. Do not react immediately. Let the silence stretch. Most liars expect a knee-jerk reaction. When you don't give them one, they start to panic. Observe. Are they actually answering your questions, or are they steering the conversation in another direction? Repeat yourself. Liars thrive on confusion. They want to move quickly, keep you on unstable ground. Don't let them. Stay focused. Keep bringing them back to the question they're avoiding. And most importantly, trust your instincts. If something feels off, it usually is. Because here's what you need to remember. Truth doesn't need manipulation. Only lies do. A truthful person won't guilt-trip you for asking questions. They won't rush you into a decision. They won't make you feel crazy for doubting them. They will simply give you the facts and let them stand. The next time someone tries to pressure you into believing them, don't respond. Just watch. Listen. See how they react when you don't give them what they want. Because real truth is steady. It doesn't need urgency. It doesn't need guilt. It doesn't need manipulation, only lies do. 2. Small details in their story don't match. A lie is like a house built on sand. It might stand for a while, but the moment the waves come crashing in, it collapses. Because no matter how well crafted a lie is, it always has cracks. And if you know where to look, you'll see them. When people tell the truth, their stories stay the same. The details don't shift. They don't have to think too hard about what they said yesterday because it actually happened. But a liar? They are constructing a false reality, and that's where they slip. A liar has to remember what they said, to whom, and when. They have to maintain the illusion, and the more complex the lie, the harder it becomes to keep it straight. They might forget the sequence of events, change a key detail, or contradict themselves entirely. That's why one of the easiest ways to catch a liar is to listen carefully and test for inconsistencies. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I had a friend, we'll call him Mark. Mark was charming, persuasive, always had a story to tell. He had a way of making you believe whatever he said. One day he told me about a job offer he received from a major company. He said they were flying him out to New York, giving him a 6-figure salary, and even offering a signing bonus. It sounded incredible. A week later, we were out for coffee, and I casually asked, "Hey, when's your flight to New York?" Mark blinked, paused, then said, "Oh, actually, they're flying me to Chicago first for training." That was the first crack. A few days later, another friend asked Mark about his new job. This time, Mark said, "Yeah, I actually negotiated remote work, so I don't have to fly anywhere." Second crack. Then, 2 weeks later, I brought it up again. "So, how's the new job?" And Mark laughed, waving it off. "Oh, I decided to decline the offer. Wasn't the right fit." And just like that, his entire story fell apart. This is what happens when someone lies. The details shift, the facts bend. A real experience stays the same no matter how many times you ask about it. But a lie? It needs constant maintenance. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Truth stands firm. It requires no effort to remember, no adjustments to maintain. But lies? Lies demand work. And the more you listen, the more you'll see them crumbling. So how do you expose these inconsistencies? Simple. Repeat the same question in different ways over time. Ask for specifics. A liar will struggle to keep their details straight. Their timeline will shift. Their characters will change. One day, they did something alone. The next, someone was there with them. This happened to a friend of mine. Let's call him James. He was dating someone he suspected was lying about her past. She told him she had once lived in Spain for 2 years. She talked about it often. But one day, James asked, "What city did you live in?" She answered, "Madrid." A month later, he casually asked, "Hey, when you were in Barcelona, what was that like?" Without thinking, she responded, "Oh, it was amazing, crack." James then asked, "Wait, I thought you lived in Madrid?" She hesitated. "Oh yeah, I visited Barcelona a lot though, crack." And just like that, the lie started to unravel. Liars also struggle with spontaneous follow-up questions, because when you're fabricating a story, you tend to focus on the big picture and forget about the smaller details. This is where they slip. Let's say someone tells you they went to a fancy restaurant last night. Instead of just nodding, ask, "Oh, what was the waiter's name?" Or, "What song was playing in the background?" A person who was actually there won't hesitate. But a liar? They will stall, guess, or change the subject. Here's another way to expose them. Ask them to repeat their story backward. Liars usually construct their falsehoods in a linear way, from start to finish. But when you disrupt that order, they stumble. If someone tells you, "I was at the office, then I grabbed dinner, then I went home," don't just accept it. Instead, casually ask, "Wait, what time did you get home again?" If they hesitate or their timing changes, that's a red flag. This is why detecting deception isn't just about catching a lie, it's about understanding how lies work. The human brain is wired to recall real experiences effortlessly. When you tell the truth, the details are anchored in reality. But when you lie, you're constructing a fictional sequence of events, and eventually you will slip. The key is patience. Liars want you to move on quickly. They want to overwhelm you with words so you don't stop and think. Don't let them. Ask, observe, wait, because the longer a lie is stretched, the weaker it becomes. If someone is telling the truth, their details will remain steady over time. If they're lying, their story will evolve, shift, and eventually contradict itself. And when that happens, you'll know. In the end, the truth doesn't need to be rehearsed. It doesn't need to be adjusted. It doesn't need to be rewritten. But lies, they always fall apart. 3. They talk too much and add unnecessary details. Have you ever asked a simple question and gotten an overly complicated answer? A response so detailed, so packed with irrelevant information that you ended up more confused than before? That's not just a bad habit. That's a sign of deception. Because when people tell the truth, they keep it simple. They don't feel the need to convince you. But a liar? A liar is afraid their story won't hold up. So they bury it under details. It's like a magician performing a trick. They distract you with flourishes, grand movements, and extra theatrics. Not because they need to, but because if you were paying attention, you'd see the trick. Liars do the same thing with words. They talk too much. They over-explain. They add in details no one asked for, and in doing so, they reveal themselves. A few years ago, I had a coworker. One day, a client's payment went missing. The manager asked him a straightforward question. "Hey, did you process the payment yesterday?" A simple yes or no would have sufficed. But he didn't just say yes. He didn't just say no. Instead, he launched into a 5-minute monologue about how busy the office was, how he had 3 different tasks to handle at the same time, how the phone kept ringing, how his lunch break got interrupted, how the system was running slow. But he never actually answered the question. By the time he was done talking, everyone in the room was exhausted. But here's the thing, the more he talked, the less believable he became. Because when you're telling the truth, you don't need to perform. You don't need 1,000 words to explain something that takes 10. And this is where Stoicism comes in. Seneca once said, "If you wish to be loved, love." But if we apply that to truth, we get something even deeper. If you wish to be believed, tell the truth. Not convince. Not perform. Not persuade. Just say what happened and let it stand. But liars can't do that. They need to sell their story, so they talk and talk and talk. Because in their mind, more words equals more credibility. And ironically, it does the opposite. There's a reason why law enforcement and interrogators are trained to look for over-explaining as a red flag. People who are innocent answer directly. They don't feel pressure to justify every detail, but guilty people? They try too hard. They give away too much. And here's how you spot it. First, look for unnecessary information. If someone is explaining what color shirt they were wearing, what song was on the radio, what the weather was like, when none of those details were asked for, it's a red flag. Second, notice if they sound rehearsed. Liars often prepare their stories in advance, but in doing so, they make their answers sound unnaturally detailed. They tell you where they were, at what time, what they were doing, who was there, all in a way that feels scripted. Third, pay attention to defensive storytelling. If someone keeps saying things like, "I swear," or "Why would I lie," or "You have to believe me," before you've even questioned them, that's not normal. That's someone trying to convince themselves just as much as they're trying to convince you. This reminds me of a friend, Jake. Jake once had a roommate, Ben. One day, Jake's Bluetooth speaker went missing. He casually asked Ben, "Hey, have you seen my speaker?" A simple no would have been enough. Instead, Ben talked for 5 minutes straight. "Man, I swear I haven't seen it. You know I wouldn't take your stuff, right? That's not even my style. I was in my room all day yesterday. I didn't even leave the apartment. Actually, no. Wait, I went out for like 10 minutes, but just to grab some food. Oh, and I had to take a call with my mom. But I don't even listen to music in my room, man. You know that. I don't even use Bluetooth speakers. I mean, I've always wanted one, but I'd never take yours. That'd be crazy, right?" Jake didn't need a psychology degree to know Ben was lying. Because here's the truth. Honest people don't explain things that don't need explaining. A liar's biggest fear is not being believed. So they add details, they overshare, they try too hard to sound natural, only to end up sounding unnatural. And this is exactly why you must stay silent. A liar needs you to react. They need you to interrupt. Because if you don't, they will keep talking. And the longer they talk, the more mistakes they make. So next time someone starts over-explaining, wait, let them dig their own hole. Because the truth doesn't need decoration, only lies do. 4. Their body language betrays them. Words can be rehearsed, stories can be fabricated, but the body tells the truth, even when the mouth lies. Because deception is not just mental, it's physical. It leaks through micro-expressions, subtle movements, and unconscious habits. No matter how skilled a liar is, their body always reveals the truth. A flicker of hesitation, a tightening of the jaw, a shift in weight. These are the cracks, the gaps between words and reality. Watch closely, and you'll see it. David was a businessman, respected, charismatic. He could sell anything to anyone. His confidence made people trust him. But one day, something changed. A financial discrepancy. Missing funds. He was confronted in a meeting. His words were perfect, calm, measured without hesitation. But his hands, they were tapping the table, rapidly. His foot was bouncing under the desk. He leaned back in his chair, forcing a relaxed posture, but his shoulders were stiff. His words were in control, but his body was screaming. And when pressed further, his voice finally cracked, just like his confidence. This is the science of deception. When someone lies, their brain is under pressure. They are trying to control both the words and the delivery. It's exhausting, and that mental strain, it shows. Some liars fidget. They touch their face, rub their hands, blink too much. Their brain is battling stress, and it leaks out through restless movements. Others go the opposite direction. They freeze. They sit unnaturally still, forcing control over their body, believing that if they don't move, they won't be caught. But control like that isn't natural. It's calculated, and that makes it obvious. Then there are micro-expressions. The slight delay before answering, the tightening around the mouth, the forced smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These last less than a second, but they expose everything. The brain reacts faster than words can form. A person may try to smile, but for a brief moment, before the conscious mind catches up, their face will flicker with tension. A brief flash of guilt, a muscle clenched in their jaw, a small, almost imperceptible shake of the head before they answer yes. These are the tells, the moments where truth leaks through the mask. Rachel learned this the hard way. She was in a long-term relationship, happy, secure, or so she thought. One night, her boyfriend came home late. She asked a simple question. "Where were you?" His answer was quick, too quick. "Just out with the guys, you know that." His voice was steady, but his throat tightened. He swallowed hard. His eyes darted just for a fraction of a second before locking back onto hers. And when she asked again, his words stayed the same, but his shoulders tensed. He was saying all the right things, but his body was betraying him. And in that moment, she knew. This is how deception works. It's not in the lie itself. It's in the gaps, the delay before answering, the unnecessary swallowing, the stiffness, the forced composure, the things they can't control. A liar focuses so much on what to say that they forget how to say it. But the body always speaks the truth. So how do you catch it? First, establish a baseline. Watch how someone behaves when they are comfortable. Everyone has natural movements, natural habits. When those suddenly change, something is off. A person who normally gestures while speaking, suddenly keeping their hands still, that's a shift. Someone who is usually animated becomes too controlled, that's a red flag. Their normal rhythm is broken. And that break is where deception begins. Second, look for clusters. One nervous movement doesn't mean much, but multiple signs together? That's when it matters. A quick look away might be nothing, but a quick look away, combined with sudden stillness and an unnecessary swallow, that's a different story. The more signs you see in combination, the stronger the likelihood of deception. Third, pause. Liars want speed. They want to fill the silence before you can think. They need to keep talking, keep controlling the pace, keep steering the conversation forward before you notice the inconsistencies. But if you slow down, if you simply watch, they get uncomfortable. The pressure builds. Their body starts reacting even more, because the more they try to keep up the act, the harder it becomes to maintain. A truthful person doesn't fear silence. They don't rush to fill the gaps. But a liar can't afford hesitation. They need to control how you perceive them. And in their effort to do so, they expose themselves. At the end of the day, truth doesn't require effort. Lies do. Truth flows naturally. It doesn't need excessive explanation, rehearsed words, or controlled body language. But deception, it requires maintenance. And the longer a lie is sustained, the more cracks appear. The body will always betray the lie, because no matter how much control the mind has, the body always remembers the truth. 5. They avoid responsibility by playing the victim. A liar rarely admits fault. They don't own their mistakes. They don't take responsibility. Instead, they rewrite the story, where they are not the problem, but the victim. Watch closely, and you'll see it everywhere. Someone gets caught lying, but instead of apologizing, they turn it around. Suddenly, you're the bad guy for questioning them. You're the one being unfair, being aggressive, being too much. This is deception at its finest. Not just dodging blame, but weaponizing sympathy to escape it. And the worst part? It works, because people don't like conflict. They don't want to press too hard, to seem cruel, to keep pushing when someone is already suffering. Liars know this. They use it. They count on your compassion being stronger than your need for truth. This is how they twist reality. They don't argue facts. They argue feelings. If you press them for answers, they act offended. Wow, I can't believe you'd accuse me of that. If you show proof, they shift blame. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. If you refuse to back down, they make it personal. You always think the worst of me. Step back and see the pattern. The conversation never stays on the truth. It always shifts to their emotions, to their struggles, to why you should feel bad for even asking. This is why people stay in toxic relationships too long. It's why good employees tolerate bad bosses. It's why manipulators get away with things they shouldn't, because every time the truth gets close, they make it about something else. They deflect, they project, they turn themselves into the victim. And suddenly, you're no longer seeking the truth. You're defending yourself against their accusations. The guilt they throw at you becomes a smokescreen. And if you're not careful, you end up apologizing for something that wasn't even your fault. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A liar wants control, but not through facts, through your emotions. They want to exhaust you, confuse you, make you feel guilty for standing firm. Because if they can't prove their innocence, they'll make you doubt your own judgment. That's their real goal. Not to win with truth, but to win by making you question your own mind. So how do you resist? First, hold your ground. Don't get dragged into emotional detours. If you asked a direct question, stay on it. If they dodge, bring them back. No distractions, no pity plays, no emotional manipulation. Second, observe, don't engage. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already lost. Because now the conversation isn't about them, it's about you. And that's exactly what they want. They want to flip the script, make you the aggressor, make you feel like you're in the wrong. And the more you try to explain yourself, the further the truth slips away. Third, stay calm. A manipulator feeds off your reaction. If you get angry, they say you're overreacting. If you get frustrated, they call you unfair. But if you stay still, if you remain composed, they lose their grip. Their tactics don't work on someone who doesn't take the bait. Their power crumbles when their emotional games fail. And that's when the truth starts to emerge. Because the truth doesn't need tricks, it doesn't need tears or guilt trips or dramatic performances. The truth stands on its own. This is the difference between honesty and deception. A person who is honest doesn't need to manipulate your emotions. They don't need to make you feel bad for asking questions. They don't need to guilt trip you into submission. They simply tell the truth and let it stand. But a liar needs you to stop looking. They need you to feel so guilty, so emotionally drained, that you let them off the hook. And that's exactly why you can't. When someone starts playing the victim to avoid responsibility, don't react. Just watch. Notice how quickly the conversation shifts away from facts and into feelings. Notice how they try to make you look like the villain for daring to question them. Notice how they seek pity instead of truth. This is the moment where you either fall into their trap or see through it completely. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. A master manipulator doesn't just deny the truth. They reshape it. They rewrite the narrative so that even when they are in the wrong, they still come out looking like the one who was hurt. But here's the truth. Guilt doesn't prove innocence. Tears don't erase facts. Playing the victim doesn't change what happened. It only changes how people feel about what happened. And when it comes to deception, feelings are the easiest thing to manipulate. That's why your greatest weapon is clarity. See through the act. Recognize the shift. Refuse to let emotions replace facts. Because a person who truly respects you won't make you feel guilty for seeking the truth. A person with integrity won't try to manipulate your emotions just to escape accountability. So the next time someone avoids responsibility by playing the victim, don't get pulled in. See it for what it is. And remember, truth isn't buried under guilt. It's right there, waiting for you to stop looking away. 6. They react too quickly when questioned. A lie, when well-crafted, should feel effortless. But here's the problem. Liars are always prepared for the question they expect. What they aren't ready for is the unexpected. And when that happens, they react. Too fast, too forcefully, too defensively. Because truth flows. It doesn't need rehearsing. But a lie is fragile. It needs to be protected. Watch how someone answers. A normal person pauses to think. They process, recall, see, then respond. But a liar? Their response is instant. Not because they're confident, because they're ready. And that's exactly what gives them away. It happens in everyday conversations. You ask someone, "Did you take my charger?" And before you even finish speaking, they snap back, "No, why would I take it? You always blame me." Or you ask a coworker, "Did you send the report?" And immediately, without even looking up, they reply, "Yeah, of course." It's subtle, but it's there. The reaction is too quick, the words are too polished, and the tone too defensive for such a simple question. This happened to Alex. He was the kind of guy who didn't like confrontation. He believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. But one day, he learned a lesson he would never forget. He had a friend, Josh. They had known each other for years, trusted each other. Or so Alex thought. Then money went missing. A small amount, but enough to raise questions. Alex didn't accuse. He simply asked, "Hey, did you see that $100 I left on the counter?" Before Alex even finished his sentence, Josh exploded. "Why would you even ask me that? You think I'm some kind of thief? Wow, man, that's messed up. I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like that." The reaction was so over the top, so exaggerated, that for a moment, Alex felt guilty for even asking. And that's exactly what Josh wanted. Because when someone overreacts, the focus shifts. It's no longer about the missing money, it's about how offended they are. This is deception, not just in words, but in behavior. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." A liar's ambition is not truth, it's control. Control of the conversation, control of your perception, control of the situation. And one of their most effective tactics? React before you think. The psychology behind it is simple. Liars know that hesitation looks suspicious, so they do the opposite. They respond instantly. But that quickness, that eagerness to shut down the question before it even lands, that is the real red flag. So how do you catch it? First, pay attention to the speed of their answer. Does it come too quickly? Is it too polished, too perfect? Are they rushing to end the conversation before it even begins? Second, watch their emotional reaction. Does their tone match the question? A simple question shouldn't provoke extreme emotion, but liars overcompensate. They get aggressive. They get defensive. They act hurt, not because they are, but because they need you to feel bad for doubting them. Third, press the pause button. When someone reacts too fast, slow the conversation down. Repeat the question. Give them time to breathe. And watch, because when a liar is forced to think, they struggle. They weren't ready for a second round, and that's when the cracks appear. Alex learned this the hard way. When Josh lashed out, Alex backed off. He felt bad. He let the subject drop. But later that week, he asked again, this time, calmly, with no emotion. Hey Josh, about that money, are you sure you didn't see it? This time, Josh hesitated, only for a second. But that was all it took. Because hesitation is natural when someone is recalling the truth. But hesitation after an immediate denial? That's a problem. That's a contradiction. And contradiction leads to exposure. Liars react fast because they think speed means confidence. But real confidence isn't in speed, it's in consistency. An honest person doesn't fear silence. They don't rush to answer before the question is even finished. They don't explode in anger over a simple inquiry. They trust the truth to defend itself. A liar, on the other hand, can't afford that. They need to keep control, keep the pressure off themselves, keep you on the defensive. But the moment you recognize this pattern, they lose that control. So next time someone reacts too quickly, slow everything down. Because when a lie is exposed to silence, it has nowhere to hide. 7. They don't answer questions directly. Where were you last night? A simple question. It needs a simple answer. But instead, you get a story, long, winding, and full of unnecessary details. Oh, last night? Well, I got off work late because my boss made me stay for this last-minute project, and I was already exhausted. Then I thought about stopping by Jake's place, but he wasn't home. So I just drove around for a bit, needed some air, you know? Then I remembered I had to get gas, so I stopped by the station, and you won't believe the price hike. Crazy, right? Anyway, after that, I just went home. But you notice something. They never actually answered your question. This is a classic sign of deception. When people are telling the truth, they respond directly. But liars, they evade, deflect, and reroute the conversation. They don't say yes or no. They give you a narrative designed to exhaust you. It's not just about lying. It's about control. Because by the time they're done talking, you're so buried in details that you've forgotten what you even asked. This is how manipulation works. They don't refuse to answer. That would be suspicious. Instead, they make you feel like they answered without actually giving you anything real. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. For truth is what I seek, and the truth never harmed anyone." But a liar? They don't seek truth. They seek escape. And the best way to escape? Never give a straight answer. This happened to Eric. He ran a small business and trusted his employees. One day he noticed inventory missing. Not a huge amount, but enough to be suspicious. He asked his warehouse manager, "Hey, did you check the stock levels last night?" The answer should have been simple, yes or no. Instead, the manager launched into a 5-minute explanation about how stressful the workload had been lately, how the system had been glitching, how a few orders had come in late, and how he was planning to go over everything soon. Eric listened, and when the man finally stopped talking, he repeated the question. "Did you check the stock levels last night?" Another pause. Then more excuses, more deflection. That's when Eric knew. When someone refuses to answer a direct question, it's not just about what they're saying, it's about what they're avoiding. This is one of the easiest ways to spot a liar. Ask a clear question. If they don't answer it directly, if they spin you in circles, if they bury you in irrelevant details, if they make it more complicated than necessary, you have your answer. So how do you counter this? First, stay focused. Liars rely on distraction. They want to confuse you. If you catch yourself getting lost in their words, stop. Bring it back. Repeat the question. Second, watch for verbal redirections. When someone says things like, "Why would you even ask me that?" Deflecting. "You think I'd do something like that?" Turning it around on you. "You know me better than that." Using familiarity to escape accountability. These aren't answers. These are evasions. And the more someone evades, the closer you are to the truth. Third, use silence. Liars hate silence. It forces them to keep talking, to fill the gap, to over-explain. And the more they talk, the more mistakes they make. A person who is telling the truth doesn't need to dance around a question. They don't need a long introduction or a side story. They simply answer. So the next time someone dodges your question, don't let them off the hook. Stay firm. Stay sharp. Because the truth is simple. Lies are complicated. And the moment you realize that, you'll never be fooled again. 8. They repeatedly use the same words or phrases unnaturally. A lie is fragile. It needs structure. It needs repetition. Liars don't just make things up as they go. They rehearse, they refine, they find phrases that sound believable and stick to them. Again and again. Because for them, the greatest fear isn't just being caught. It's slipping up. That's why when someone is lying, you'll often notice something strange. They keep repeating themselves. The same phrases, the same words. Almost like a script. Not because they forgot what they said, but because they're terrified of saying too much. This is what happened to Lisa. She worked in customer service, handling high-value client accounts. One day, a major contract renewal came into question. A client called furious, saying they were promised a specific discount, but there was no record of it. Lisa confronted her coworker, Mark, the one who handled the initial negotiations. She asked, "Did you tell them they'd get the discount?" Mark's response came too fast. "I never said that. I never said that. I never said anything about a discount. Why would I say that? That makes no sense. I never said that." Lisa blinked. No one had accused him yet. No one had even implied he was lying, but he was locked in a loop, repeating the same denial, almost word for word. That's when she knew. Because truth is natural. It doesn't need reinforcement. But a lie needs repetition. It needs structure. It needs to be drilled into existence. This is one of the biggest giveaways of deception. Liars rely on scripts. They memorize phrases that sound definitive, phrases they can cling to under pressure. "I was definitely at home that night. I swear that's exactly what happened. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know." Pay attention. The words don't change. The rhythm stays the same. It's not just a response, it's a shield. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A liar's mind is filled with one thought: don't get caught. And that fear controls their words. It makes them stick to what feels safe. A truthful person doesn't do this. They speak freely. Their words shift naturally. They recall details as they come. But a liar is terrified of contradiction, so they repeat. So how do you catch this? First, listen for unnatural repetition. Are they using the exact same phrases in the exact same way multiple times? Are they over-explaining something that should be simple? Second, disrupt their rhythm. Ask follow-up questions. Make them repeat their story backward. A real memory flows no matter where you start. But a lie falls apart when the order is broken. Third, use silence. Let them sit in their own words. The more a liar talks, the more obvious their pattern becomes. Lisa didn't press Mark that day. She didn't argue. She just waited. And sure enough, when the client was questioned again, they produced an email from Mark, promising the discount. His words were smooth, but his repetition, that was his downfall. Because truth doesn't need to be repeated to be real. Only lies do. Lies are everywhere. They shape conversations, decisions, and even entire relationships. But deception isn't always obvious. It doesn't always come with nervous fidgeting or shifting eyes. The most dangerous lies are the ones hidden in subtle details, the ones wrapped in charm, confidence, and emotional manipulation. That's why recognizing deception isn't just a skill, it's a form of self-protection. The truth is, people reveal themselves in small ways. They hesitate when the truth should be easy. They talk too much when a simple answer would do. They repeat themselves, trying to force a lie into existence. They deflect, avoid, and play the victim when confronted. These signs are always there, if you know how to look. But knowing isn't enough. You must practice. Observe how people respond under pressure. Listen beyond their words. Watch how their body contradicts their speech. And most importantly, trust your instincts. Because deception isn't just about what is said, it's about what doesn't add up. The more you sharpen this skill, the harder it becomes for others to manipulate you. The more you train yourself to see the cracks, the more control you have over your own reality. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught someone in a lie? What was the sign that gave it away? Share your story in the comments below, because the best way to sharpen this skill is to learn from each other.